So we will continue our discussion. Where did we stop last time? I'll share my screen. Okay, can you guys see my screen? Okay, so I think some of you are already here. Okay, so we will continue our discussion. So we previously discussed the reserved words. Ito yung mga words or na pag-aari ni Python, no? So you cannot use this as a variable names or identifiers. Okay, so we have here also. Okay, so we already introduced this one. So in this case, we siya via command prompt, no? Wala siya sang Python na idle na gamit. Ayan. We usually use this one by if naka Linux ka or naka command prompt lang. But still the same, no? So we have here the sentences or lines, no? So already discussed this one. So we have here the variable. So we have here the x, no? It's equals to 1. So we print or we assign a statement, okay, which is the constant value. And then we have here the operator. So the same lang, no? Sa calculator, we have equals plus divide is the slash. And then yung multiply is a asterisk. Yan. Then you have a certain variable here. It's just depend on you. For example, here we have x, no? Or you can just have y. Ayan. Then we have a function. Ayan. So we use here a print function. Okay, so for example, you have here a certain Python program that counts. Okay, it counts word. Okay, so in this program, it identifies when a certain file in which kung ano ang pinakadako. Ayan. Wait, I will reshare my screen. Check natin. Yeah. Yeah. So we have here your words.py tsaka words.txt. Ayan. Can you guys see my screen? The whole screen. Okay, so we have here the words.py. So I will just open it. So edit with idle. So that ara na siya mismo sa and so this is a short story about how to count words in a Python file, no? So we will learn this one later on. Tingnan natin kung ano ba tong line na to, diba? And so on, no? We will examine this code later. So if I run this one, if I run this module, ayan. So it asks, no? So magtatanong siya kung aling file. So in this case, nandito pa lang siya. So here, the program asked me to input a file. Ayan. So what kind of file? So we have here a function input wherein meron siyang value. May value siya na text or character. Tapos, yung input na to, ito yung i-ano natin, ilalagay dito kung anong file name. Yan. So dito, enter a file. So in this case, we have words.txt. Ayan, ito siya, words.txt. So try natin. Pag in-enter natin, so yung function niya is, or yung handle niya, we have here the function open. Okay, so ano yung i-open natin? Yung i-open natin is yung name. Ito yung variable name natin, in which it has a value of an input, or ito yung loob ng file. And then we have here recursive function, no? So additional function niya or command niya. So R stands for read. Okay, so we have read write na function for the open. Okay, so let's check yung sa loob ng words. So ito yung words. Edit natin. Ayan. So sa loob na to, so imagine, no, without the use of Python program or a computer program, so paano mo isipon, or how will you count the words? Okay, so inside this text, no, or inside this story, aling words dito yung pinakamarami? So isa-isahin mo yan. So writing, isa lang. Programs, isa lang din. Isa-isahin yan. Itatali mo kung anong words yung pinakamarami at anong words na yon. But so parang napaka-tedious siya. So in this case, let's check, no, or with the use of program. So when I enter here, ayan. So yung pinakamarami dito sa text na to is yung word na to. So ilan ba? So dito 16, yung nakita niya 16. Okay, so kung isipon mo na siya, ayan, 1 2 3 4, yan, 5 and so on. So 16 yung pinakamarami, which is word na to. Okay? So for this case, etong code na naman na to, we have here the for. So this is a reserved word or reserved vocabulary. For line. So meaning, ito is line number 1 to. Ayan, line 1, column 1. Ito naman, line 2. Ayan, L2 dito sa baba. Kikita mo dyan sa notepad. Then 3, 4, 5, 6. So dito, for line in handle. So meaning, saan ba to yung handle na to? Dito. Sa name. Anong name? Ito, sa file mismo na words.txt. Ayan. So we also have a counts here na variable. So these are the variables na ginamit natin. Counts, handle, tsaka yung name. In which meron siyang value na function. Ayan, and each function meron specific commands. Okay? And for example, we have here na, no. So we have here 4 words. So this is our another another variable. For words equal to line.split. So this is another function in which i-split niya yung bawat words per line. So meaning isa-isahin niya. And then for word in words, so eto na. So ika-count niya yung word based sa words per line. And then sa kanya isa-sum up kung ilan ba yung word na yon na nakikita niya per line. Ayan. So this one, we have here another variable name that is big count. Okay, so ito yung we assign none here na variable because wala pa. Hindi pa niyan alam kung kumbaga unknown value pa. Okay, so you should ang tawag dito, you should put a none comment or none value. Okay, so this is another reserve word for Python. So once na nag-count niya na lahat for each line, once na natapos niya na count lahat, so yung variable mo dito, yan, big word, tsaka big count, mare-replace yan ng dito, kung ano yung nakuha niya na word. Okay, so i-get niya yung word, tapos mag-a-add siya ng 1 kung ilan yung nakita niya per line. So for this case, we have 2. Yung nakita niya ng pinakamaraming word is 2, which is 16. So dito na siya papasok sa condition na to. And so for word, count in counts.items. So we have here the items na naman na command. Okay, so meaning ito yung list of items. Okay. So this is based on counts again. So ito yung counts mo. Based on the dictionary. Ayan. Yung dictionary, ito yung loob ng parang nandito yung nakastore yung lahat ng words na kinount mo. Okay. Then we have a condition here. If big count is none or count is greater than big count, then big word will be the word. Anong value ng word? Ito. Ito yung value ng word. Depende. Ito siya. Then ano naman yung value ng count mo? Okay. So dito rin siya. Ito. Yan. For word and count, in counts.items. So if big count is none, so i-replace niya yung big word mo na variable, instead of none, ito na yun, papalit niya yung word, yung nakuha niya, or nalista niya, dito, yung pinakamarami. And then, kung ilan. Yan. Ilang word na 2 yan for the whole text. Yan. And then, yung last command would be the print. Okay, the print function in which ipiprint niya yung big word tsaka big count. Okay, so notice na wala na tayong ginawang hindi na natin ginawa na yung parang ganito. Diba? Wala na tayong nagbutang sang certain value. This one. Because kung ipiprint na yung value na to, yung ipiprint niya is yung value mismo. But in this case, since naka-variable tayo, wala na kita nagamit dara sang quotation. Okay, hindi na tayo gumamit ng quotation kapag variable name na yung ilalagay natin sa loob ng function. Okay. Yan. So, ito lang yung kalalabasan niya. So, hindi mo na ima-manual na tingnan pa, no? Tingnan pa. Or isa-isa mo isip. Okay, so what if, let's say, meron tayong host of Philamer eh. Ano ba yan? Meron tayo ditong host of Philamer. Wala. Sige, later na lang. Okay, so going back. Ayan. So programming paragraphs. Ayan. So we have here the Python script. So interactive Python is good for experiments and programs of 3 to 4 lines long. So meaning, parang yung activity number 1 nyo lang, yung parang laboratory exercise number 1 nyo lang, na 3 to 4 lines lang. Ayan, pwede siya maging interactive. Most programs are much longer. So we type them into a file. Ito yung tinest natin. So naka-type siya sa dito. Actually, you can write naman the program sa instead of TextPad, no? I'll close this one. Instead of TextPad or pwede rin dito. sa Python. Okay, so for example, you have ito. So we edit ko to, open with Notepad. So ito yung code mo. Kakopy lang natin to. Ito. Ayan. Pero hindi mo siya ma-enter. So pwede mo siyang ma-save as, no? Or we'll just create new file. Ayan, new file na lang. Okay, so close muna natin. I will search for idle. And so I will just create a new file. So this is an maglagay ng of codes. It print, di ba? But you can have a new file. Ito. So ito na siya. You can write your code here. Ayan. And then pwede mo siyang mga run. And then if there's something, an error here, pwede mo siya ma-edit, no? And then rerun the program. Ayan. So, kailangan mo lang i-save mismo. Kasi naka-untitled to eh. So, i-save mo lang siya. So, saan mo siya i-save? So, let's say sa desktop. Let's say words.py. Yan, .py palagi yung extension, file extension natin. Yan, so sa start na siya. Ito na. Files.py or words.py. Yan. Pero pag in-enter mo na yung file mo, yung words.txt, so mag-error to. Kasi wala siyang or walang nakalagay na words.txt doon. Yan. So hindi niya makita. Okay? Wala siyang makita na words.txt. So dapat kung saan nakasave yung Python file mo, doon din nakasave yung i-execute mo na text file. Katulad nito. Yan, dapat magkasama sila. Okay. So one of the error baka ma-encounter nyo later on, bakit hindi nag-execute yung yung file nyo. Okay, so we will take this we will cover this later on sa future pa or sa next modules natin with regards to these functions. Okay. Lang muna tayo ng parang introduction lang muna tayo. Okay, so we'll close that one. Okay, so I will reshare again my screen. So most programs are much longer. Ito. And in a sense, we are giving Python a script. Yun yung script na parang kinapi-paste mo lang siya. Then isa-save mo siya with a .py. Yan, as a extension file. Okay, so anong pinagkaiba ng interactive tsaka sa script? So interactive, you type directly to Python one line at a time and it responds. Yan yung sinabi ko kanina na pag nag-type ka ng print function, pag in-enter mo, automatically nagre-respond siya. So while in a script, so meron siyang a series of sequence. Diba? May series of sequence siya. Ayan. So like a recipe, so or installation program or installation instructions, a program is a sequence of steps to be done in order. So hindi pwedeng yung sa yung sa program mo, sa Python script mo or sa Python program mo, hindi pwedeng first step tapos third step. So dapat siya in sequence. Okay? So hindi niya yan kasi yung pagbasa ni Python is per line. Okay? Per line yung pagbasa ni Python, hindi siya nagja-jump ng number of lines. So each line siya nag-read. Okay? So some steps are conditional. They may be skipped. So depende sa imo nga pag-write sang program in which magamit ka sang conditional. What are these conditional? So you have your if-else na statement. If 2 is greater than 1, then ma-proceed ka sa next step. If 2 is less than 1, proceed ka sa next step. Or it might be end na. Okay? So depende sa imo nga program. So sometimes a step or group of steps is to be repeated. Ayan. So meron siyang wala siyang para wala siyang end, no? Wala siyang end point. So naka-loop siya. Ayan, naka-loop. I'm not sure if meron tayong examples. Ayan, yung for na function. Yan, naka-loop yan. Naka-loop. Okay. Sometimes we store a set of steps to be used over and over as needed several places throughout the program. We will learn that one later, no? So for example, we have here, no? So sequential steps. And so we have here a program, x is equals to 2. So print x. So output niya 2. Diba? But after that, pag nag-type again tayo sa interactive natin na x is equals to x plus 2, yung output ng print function natin would be 4 na. Kasi kinuha niya na itong value ng x, which is 2 dito. So meaning it will become 2 plus 2. Yun yung bagong value ng x, which is 4. So meaning ito yung sequence step niya. Yan, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. So when a program is running, it flows from one step to the next. So as programmers, we set up paths for the program to flow. So meron tayong tinatawag na flow chart. What are these flow charts? Ito. Okay. So we have here conditional. So conditional, ito yung parang rhombus or parang naka-diamond o diagonal. Ayan. And then ito yung sa statement natin. So later on, maybe sa exam nyo siguro, you will need to create a flow chart of a certain program. Ayan. For example, this is our program. So how will you create a flow chart for this one? So we have here a statement that is x is equals to 5. Then we have a condition. This is a condition command. No? If x is greater than or is x is less than 10, then ano yung ika-command mo? Smaller siya. Yan. If x is greater than 20 naman, ito yung ika-command mo. Yan. Then print done. Okay. Ayan. So dito siya mag-skip. For example, in-enter mo yung x is equals to 5, no? So you have your condition statement here. Yung 5 bala is less than 10. If yes, then you print smaller. Tapos na yun, done na. If no, then x bala is greater than 20. If yes, print bigger. Then done. If no, then print done. So you don't have wala na tayong condition diyan. So ito lang yung naka-program. So depende sa imo kung how will you structure or how will you create your program. Kung ano yung desired output mo. Yan. So how about the repeated steps? So these are the example of conditional steps. So for the repeated steps, no. So we have here n is equals to 5. Yan. So we have two conditions. Okay, so n is okay, so ito yung natin. So we have here the while. Meron tayong while na command or function. Anong ibig sabihin ng while? Kung, di ba? Parang kung yung n is or while n, di ba? Habang yung n is greater than 0, ipiprint mo yung number of n dito. Tapos, yung value ng n, isa-subtract mo siya. At least n minus 1. So meaning yung new value ng n would be hindi na 5, 4 na kasi nagma-minus ka na dito. So parang nag-loop siya. Okay? So loops or repeated steps have iteration variables in which it change each time through a loop. Okay? So ang variable natin dito, yung value ng variable, nag-change siya depende sa imo nga command. So for this case, we have n minus 1. So that is 5 minus 1. And so on. So pag nag-5 na ni siya, minus 1. So it will become 4 in the first loop. And then, pag greater than 0 pagid siya, so print niya na is 4. Then magma-minus again siya. So 4 minus 1, 3. So i-ano niya yan, ilulup niya yan until such time na yung condition niya will become no na. Meaning, less than na or equal na siya sa 0. Okay? Pag nag-no na siya, then it will be print it print blast off. Ayan. So hindi na siya dito magpiprint ng number. So dito na siya didirekta sa blast off. So ito yung program mo. Ito yung flow chart niya. Ayan. So meaning parang ito yung it means that parang ito yung ano niya, yung flow of your program step by step. So ito yung parang ito yung instruction mo sa kanya. Ayan. And then ito yung script mismo. Tapos ito yung output mo. Ayan. So for our case dito, so we use sequential here sa first part dito sa yellow. And then we have here repeated, no? So we have also repeated. So sequential, then repeated dito. So 4 words. Ayan. Repeated to kasi nagpa+1 tayo. And then conditional. Okay, so dito na siya papasok yung if statement natin or if else. So if big count is none or count greater than big count, then ito na yun. So ito yung condition statement natin. Okay, so a short Python story, no? So about how to count words in a file. So the word or a word used to read data from a user. So kung ano yung in-input natin. Then we have here a sentence about updating one of the many counts. So ilang word ba yung nakuha natin? Each line. Then we have here a paragraph about how to find the largest item in a list. Yan. Okay, so that ends our previous module, no? So we go to the next topic. So tingnan natin. I'll just share my screen. Let's take a look, no, for the data types and some variables, as well as expressions. So I'll just share my screen. So this is in pangilan na ba to sa module? Module 4 now. We are now in module 4. Don't worry, yung mga laboratory naman natin will be extended yung deadlines. Okay, so still have tagal pa naman yung prelim natin. Okay, so data types. Okay, so we have here a statement or a simple phrase, no? In 2007, si Micaela paid $120,000 for her house at 24 East Maple Street. Yan. So data type consists of a new set, okay, or a set of values and a set of operations that can be performed on those values. So in literal, the way a value of a data type looks to a programmer. So ito yung parang literal na nakikita ng programmer. Okay. So we have literals for some Python data types. Okay. So we have the type of data. So that is integers. Or we can use the Python type name that is int for short. Okay. Ito yung gagamitin nating functions, no, or commands. And then for real numbers, we have float. Okay, so for example of integer numbers would be -1, 0, +1, 2, and so on. For the float naman, it includes decimal numbers. So that is 0.55, -0.55, 0.333. So meron siyang decimal point. And then we have the character string, or which we call strings na lang, or str for short. So that is your characters mismo, yung letters mo or yung numbers, which is enclosed, no? Naka-enclose siya into quotations. Okay? Or single or double quotation. Yan. So if you are not sure, no, what type of a value or what type a value has. So the interpreter or the idle can tell you. Okay, so for example, we have here sa atong illustration, we have here hello world. Okay, so with the use of type na function, that is type then open close parentheses. So anong function na to, or what kind of what kind of data type? So yung yung response niya is class str, or this is string. Okay, so how about 17? For this case, na-identify niya as int, or this is integer. So we use here the type function. Then naka-enclose yung value na gusto natin na i-identify kung or i-interpret niya sa atin ni Python. Okay. Pag walang naka-enclose dyan, so meaning hindi siya character or hindi siya string. Okay, so meaning it is a number. It's either an integer or a float. It depends. Pag may decimal point, then obviously i-identify niya yan or i-interpret niya yan as a float. So strings belong to the type str and integers belong to the type int. So numbers with a decimal point belong to a type called float. And because these numbers are represented in a format called floating point. And that's why meron tayong decimal point there. So what is a string literals? So this is a sequence of characters enclosed in single or double quotation marks. Yan. So ito yung string natin or str natin. Naka-enclose siya into single or double quotation marks. Pag walang single or double quotation marks, then you will encounter some errors. Okay, so it's either it will parang i-consider niya na variable name siya kasi hindi tayo nag-i-enclose ng hindi tayo nag-i-enclose ng single or double quotation marks pag variable yung gamit. Unless kung yung variable mo is may value na naka-quotation mark. Ayan. So although it contains no characters, the empty string is a string nonetheless. So note that the empty string is different from a string that contains a single blank or blank space character. Yan, so the same lang siya. So next we have the double quoted strings. Okay, so the same lang, no? So these are handy for composing strings that contain single quotation marks or apostrophes. For example, we have here, I'm using a single quote in this string. So whether you use single or double quotation, no? Okay, so it's still considered as a string. But take note that the print function, okay, displays the nested quotation mark, but not the enclosing quotation marks. So a double quotation mark can also be included in a string literal if one uses the single quotation marks to enclose the literal. Yan. So parang pareho lang din, di ba? So notice, if you use a double quotation mark or in a character without the print function, so ipiprint niya, okay, it will print included the quotation mark. Pero pag nasa print function, yung nasa loob lang mismo, yun yung ipiprint niya. So you can try this one if you have your Python application, no? To check. Yan. So writing a string literals, so you need to determine whether you want to output the string as a single line or as a multi-line paragraph. So pwede siya maging pwede mo siya ma-next line. Okay? Para hindi siya mahaba. Okay? So to output a paragraph of text that contains several lines, so you could use a separate print function, diba? So print function for the first line, then print function for the second line, and so on. However, it is more convenient to enclose the entire string literal. Tapos ma-add ka lang sang 3 consecutive quotation marks. So it's either single or double quotation for the print function. Like this one, for example. So we have here, meron tayong tatlo. Okay, so 3 consecutive quotation marks. So meaning, yung pag-enter mo dito, nag-enter ka, ang next line mo, hindi to magpiprint. Kasi meron kang tatlong quotation mark here. So it still needs to enclose with the end. May tatlo ka pa dapat dito. Okay. And then once you enclose the function, ito na yung close parenthesis mo sa print function. Pag enter mo, then the output will be this one. Ayan, ito na yung output mo. So note that the first line in the output ends exactly where the first line ends the code. Okay. So when you evaluate a string in Python shell without the print function, so you can see the literals for the new line character. So you can use also a \n. Okay, so what we call the backslash, ito yung kabaliktaran ng slash. So \n and \n embedded in the result as follows. So we have also this one. Ito yung hindi natin ginamitan ng hindi natin ginamitan ng print function. So the new line character or \n is what we call the escape sequence in Python terms. So we can call it as an escape sequence. So these are the Python way Python expresses special characters such as tab or the new line and the backspace. So this amo niya yung nagamit as literal. Okay, so we have the \n. And the escape sequence niya. So meron pang iba yan. So ito, for the backspace, we have the \b. For the new line, and we have the \n. So meaning next line siya. Then for the \t, you have the horizontal tab. Then for the double backslash, so that is the slash character, yung slash mismo, or yung backslash mismo na character. Then you have the backslash quotation, or this is your single quotation mark. And for your double quotation, you have the backslash double quotation. And so because the backslash is used for escape sequences, so \b, \n, \t, so it must be escaped to appear as a literal character in a string. So we have here the print function. So kung titingnan natin, pag print natin yung dalawang backslash, isa lang yung labas or isa lang yung lumabas. So meaning it prints the backslash character. Ayan. So we have here string concatenation. So when you say concatenation, ito yung parang pagdudugtong-dugtungin mo. Okay? So ito yung parang pagdudugtong-dugtungin mo yung bawat string. Okay, so you can join two or more strings to form a new string using concatenation operator plus. So meaning this string plus this string plus this string, pag in-enter mo to, so it will result to a single new string, that is hi there n. And then we have also the asterisk. So ano naman to? So the asterisk operator allows you to build a string by repeating another string. Okay, so repeating another string a given number of times. So the left operand is a string and the right operand is an integer. For example, if you want to the string Python, Python, to be preceded by 10 spaces, so you don't need to enter 10 spaces by hand, but instead you can have i-enclose mo yung space sa quotation, then multiplied by 10, kung ilang times ba yan, then you have the operator plus, and then Python. So in this case, yung output niya is ito. So this is now equivalent of 10 spaces and then the string Python. So minultiply natin yung string na space by 10 tapos isinama natin yung Python. So you don't need to put space, hindi ka na magpindot ng space 10 times, no? In order to create a string. So in this case, parang naging parang naging shortcut lang in creating new strings. Yan. So variables, this is one of the most powerful features of programming language, no? In which it can manipulate variables. So a variable is a name that refers to a value. So you cannot define a variable without a certain value. So an assignment statement creates new variables and gives them value. For example, we have here message is equals to, so this is our variable name, that is message, is equals to, naka-enclose siya into quotation, and now for something completely different. So this is your character string. Okay, naka-character string tayo. And then we have the n is equals to 17. Ayan. So yung variable name natin dito is n, and then yung value natin ng variable natin is 17. And the same with pi. Ayan. So pag tinawag mo na siya, or if you use the print function, you disregard the quotation, no? Para hindi niya i-print yung n na string mismo. Okay? Para hindi niya i-print yung n, kundi yung variable n na may value na 17 yung ipiprint niya. Yan. So variable names and keywords, so they can contain both letters and numbers. But take note, it cannot start with a number. Okay, so walang variable name na may number. Kasi mag-e-error yan. Okay, so can also use uppercase letters, but it is good idea to begin lowercase. So yung best practice dito, we only use the lowercase, no, for the first part sa mga variable, and then you can have your uppercase later parang sa last part na. And also it can use underscore character such as my underscore name or airspeed underscore of underscore unladen underscore swallow. So it can also start with underscore character, but we generally avoid doing this unless we are writing a library code for others to use. So when you say library code, ito yung parang code mo na pwede mong gamitin. So it's like a book, no, na pwede mong basahin and then pwede mong isauli. So we have also a library code na tinatawag. So later on, no, we will encounter that one, no, in which na hindi ka na magra-write ng code, kundi tatawagin mo na yung code na nasa library mo mismo. Pero you need to import it, no? I-import mo yung library mo para kasama siya sa whole script ng program mo. So we have here examples of illegal variable names. Yan. So anong mali dito? 'Di ba nag-umpisa siya sa letter, sa numbers. Yan, so 76 trombones, big parade. So syntax error, invalid syntax. So automatically mag-error yan si Python. Then we have here special characters. May special characters dito. So bawal yan. Okay? So mag-invalid syntax pa rin yan. Yan. How about dito? Class is equals to. So here we use the class na variable name. So class is a reserved word for Python. So you cannot use this as a variable name. Okay, so that's why you still encounter this error. So you say invalid syntax. Okay, so ito yun, no? Ayan. So ito pa yung iba, no? So false class return is finally none if for lambda continue and so on. So ito yung mga reserved words ni Python. So sa kanya lang to. Hindi niya pwedeng i-share sa iyo. Yan, statements. Okay, when you say statement, so it is a unit of code that the Python interpreter can execute. So there are two kinds of statements. So we have here the print being an expression statement or assignment. And yung assignment, ito yung value ng variable mo. Okay. Wherein pwede niya rin i-print, di ba? So for example, we have here, no? So print 1. Yan. So x is equals to 2, print x. So ito na yung result niya pag niran mo yung program. Okay, so let's take a look for the operators and operands. Ano naman tong operators and operands? So operators, so these are special symbols that represent computations like addition and multiplication. So the values the operator is applied to are called operands. So this is in mathematics. So we have here an arithmetic expression which consists of operands and operators that combined in a manner that is already familiar to you from learning algebra. And so we have here the table which shows several arithmetic operators. So for the minus signs, of course, we have this dash. And so this is for negation. Or syntax is negative a or negative something, depende sa mga variable. Or depende sa mga nga statement dere. Next, we have the double asterisk or what we call the exponentiation. Okay, so that is a raised to b. We have the single asterisk for multiplication, slash for the division, double slash for the quotient. Then for the percent for the remainder or modulus, you have the plus and the minus sign for addition or subtraction. So you can use the same, no? This is the dash for negation or negative sign, and for the subtraction. Okay, so but the same principle and process you apply from your algebra dito. So you need to enclose your negative. Let's say 1 plus negative 2. So you need to enclose it in open and closed parentheses. And so we have also the rules of precedence. So the same with our algebra. So we have the PEMDAS, or what we call the parentheses, then exponentiation, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. So we have the PEMDAS. And so parentheses have the highest precedence and can be used to force an expression to evaluate in the order you want. So since expression in parentheses are evaluated first, so that is 2 times 3 minus 1 quantity is 4. That is 3 minus 1, 2. Then 2 times 2 is equals to 4. And that is 1 plus 1, that is 2. Raised to 5 minus 2, that is 3. So that is 2 raised to 3, which is 8. So you can also use parentheses to make an expression easier to read, as in a minute times 100 over 60. So same lang. Then we have the exponentiation. So this has the next highest precedence. Ito yung parang power, no? Power mo. Then we have the multiplication, then followed by division. So division and multiplication can be depende sa ila, but they have the same precedence. So pareho lang sila. And then we have the addition, which is higher than the subtraction. Yung pinakamababa is yung subtraction. And take note that operators with the same precedences are evaluated from left to right. Okay, so from left to right tayo. So the expression that is 5 minus 3 minus 1 is 1, not 3. Okay, hindi 3. Because the 5 minus 3 happens first, because left to right tayo, and then 1 is subtracted from 2. Yan. So I have here some arithmetic expressions and their values. Okay, so take note. You can use this one later on. For example, we have this expression that is 5 plus 3 times 2, or that is 5 plus 6, which is value niya will be 11. So how we can evaluate this expression? So it depends on the precedences of the operands or the operator. How about this one? So the last 2 lines of the table above shows attempts to divide by 0. So obviously we cannot divide, no? Diba? Any number cannot divide by 0. So in this case, it will give you a syntax error. Okay, when you say syntax, so this is a set of rules, no, for constructing well-formed expressions or sentences in a language. So semantics, on the other hand, is the set of rules that allow an agent to interpret the meaning of those expressions or sentence. So let's go back to our yung code kanina, no? Yung story code. So asking the user for input. So ano yung gusto mong i-input? Okay, so Python provides a built-in function called the input. Yan. So ito siya yung input, then followed by open and close parentheses. That gets input from the keyboard. Okay, so the program stops and wait for the user to type something. Like yung ginawa natin kanina, niran ko yung program, tapos nagtatanong siya ng file name. Diba? For example, we have here a variable name, that is name is equals to input. Then ito yung ilalabas ko. What is your name? Then, so yung output nito or yung tingnan natin, irara natin siya sa program. So I will share my screen para makita nyo. Yan. Idle. Try natin dito sa Python mismo. Yan. So first, maglalagay tayo ng variable. Yan. Variable. Then we use the input function. Oops. Then followed by ano yung gusto mong ipalabas sa user. Or ano yung gusto mong ilalabas. So let's say let's say enter your 6-digit PIN. Yan. Tapos magba-backslash n tayo para next line niya i-enter yung yung PIN. So pag in-enter natin, oops. Bakit? So we have here double quotation, single quotation. Again, so may syntax tayo. So i-write lang natin again. Input. So okay lang magkamali. Diba? Walang problem dyan. Enter your, ano naman mawawala, di ba? Digit PIN. Then mag-backslash tayo ng n. Double quotation. So kung ano yung quotation na ginamit mo dito, yun din yung i-end dapat. Kung single, single. Kung double, double. And always enclose your function. Okay, so naka-enclose dapat tayo. Okay. Ayan. So, hindi pa siya nag-stop yung program kasi tinatanong niya pa ako kung ano yung 6-digit PIN ko. Okay, so let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Lalabas. Yun na yun. Diba? Pero pag print na natin, print ko yung name. Ito. So anong lalabas dito? Yung value nito yung in-enter natin. Ayan. Okay, so this is an interactive. Ito yung interactive mode wherein step by step ka magta-type ng script mo or code mo. So let's say print. So gamit tayo ng concatenation. Okay. My 6-digit PIN is, then plus tayo. Then yung variable name natin. Ayan. Ito yung output mo. My 6-digit PIN is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Yan nakasimple. No? Okay, so I will reshare my slide again. And I hope you get the point. So you have also mixed mode arithmetic, and type conversions. And so mixed mode arithmetic Mathic, this is performing calculations involving both integers and floating points. So may mga conditions tayo later on. Okay, may mga conditions tayo later on. In this case, we have 3.14 times 3 raised to 2. Ito, exponent to. So value niya automatically would be 28.26. So Python can calculate simple arithmetic calculations. Mixed mode. Yeah. Then we have also binary operation. So this is int function to float function. So meaning this converts from the integer into a decimal point. May decimal point. Yeah. So for example, we have here radius is equals to input, enter the radius. So in which the program asks the user to input the following radius, that is 3.2. Then if we type float radius, then obviously it will result to 3.2 mismo. Okay, but some case there are times na ira-round up niya or ira-round down yung value. So we will check that later on. Okay. Ayan. So the int function converts a float to an int by truncation. So yung tinatawag natin truncation, not by rounding to the nearest whole number. So tinatruncate niya. Kaya ano meaning tinatruncate? Parang hindi niya na sinasama. Kinakat niya na. Okay? So truncation simply chops off the number's fractional part. And then the round function rounds a float in the nearest int as in the example below. So for example, int 6.75. So since this is an integer function, so it will only result or it only ipagwa niya lang sa imo ang whole number, not the fractional part na 0.75. While in round, so this is rounded off, no? Ira-round off niya yung float na type ng number or ng character into highest or nearest int. So for example, you have 6.75. So ira-round up niya yan into 7. Yeah. So the same as in mathematical, no? But in this case, we use the types or functions in Python. So you have here common type conversions functions and their uses. Okay, so we have here the int, then a number or a string. And so for example, we have int 3.77. So yung value niya would be 3 lang. Then if you have int 33, then of course it will have 33. If you have float 22, then obviously we have 22.0. Then for the str99, then obviously it will result into a string na 99. So take note of this one. Okay, so another use of type conversion. Of course, in that construction of strings from numbers and other strings. For example, using variable profit. So profit here is a floating point number. Ayan, so nag-assign tayo ng value ng profit which is 1,000.55. So pag print natin to, we print the $sign as a character plus profit. So may error tayo. Bakit? Kasi yung sa print function, diba? So kakoncatenate nito as a string and not as a number na value dito. So meaning you need to insert the string function sa profit. Okay? Para ma-convert niya na yung floating point number na to is a string. So meaning hindi na siya number as 1,000.55 but a character or a string that is 100.55. Okay, magkaiba yung string sa number. Okay? Magkaiba yung string sa number. So that's why we need to convert the floating point into a string. So paano siya mako-convert? So you need to use the string function and then ilalagay mo sa loob ng function na to yung gusto mong i-convert. For this case, we have the profit, the variable name, in which has a value of 1,000.55. Ayan. So ito yung correct code. Okay? And so next we have the comment. And so the comment, these are information a program that is meant for other programmers or anyone reading the source code or anyone reading your script or Python script. And it has no effect on the execution of the program. So normally it starts with the pound sign or the hashtag symbol. And for example, we have here, compute the percentage of the hour that has elapsed. And so yung output niya mismo. Hindi na yung or wala na yung comment dito. Yung comment is parang guide siya, no? Ito rin yung parang guide mo na baka gamitin mo yung code na yan for the next 5 years. So you don't know what is the purpose of that code or what is the purpose of that part of the script. Di ba? So parang parang palatandaan. And the comment appears on a line by itself and you can also put comments at the end of a line. So everything from the pounds or the hashtag to the end of the line is ignored and has no effect on the program. Ito yung parang palatandaan mo kung ano yung gamit ng line na yan. Anong code na yan or anong meaning ng code na yan sa line na yan. So for example, you have here print percentage. So may comment dito na percentage on an hour. Yan. So ito siya. Yan. Yan yung example ng Then we have also mnemonic. So what is this mnemonic? So means memory aid. Okay. So mnemonic variable names help us to remember why we created the variable in the first place. Yeah. So we have here 3 examples of simple program. So identical in terms, no? That is A, B, and C na variable name. Diba? And then we have and you and we have shoot to bugs or may error sa codes niyo. Diba? So much better na may mnemonic ka. Ayan. So kung hours yung ini-input mo or yung pay yung ini-input mo, yun lang din yung gagamitin mong variable name. Diba? Or simply ABC. Diba? Yan nun. No need to have a variable that is very complicated in which na ikaw rin naman yung ikaw magyapon mabudlayan, no? Later on. So 3 general types of errors. Yan. Ano yung mga errors na to nakikita natin or may encounter natin later on? So we have here the first or the very popular error, which is the syntax error. So these are the first errors you will make and the easiest to fix. So a syntax error means that you have violated the grammar or what we call the grammar rules of Python. Hindi yung English grammar natin na iintindihan natin. So iba yung grammar ni Python. Okay? Iba yung computer language natin. So Python does its best to point right at the line and character where it noticed it was confused. So sabi ni Python, parang may mali dito sa line na to. Hindi ko kilala to. Sino tong variable na to? Ayan. So tapos mag-syntax error siya. Magpa-prompt siya sa iyo na hey user, you have a syntax error here. I don't know what this kind of variable or this variable is unknown at line 2 or at line 22. Ayan. So meaning may clue ka na kung saan yung error. And so the only tricky bit of syntax errors is that sometimes the mistake that needs fixing is actually earlier in the program than where Python noticed it. It was confused. No? So meaning, pag sa, let's say you have a 10 lines of code. So pag sa third line pa lang may error na, it will automatically stop. So hindi na niya itutuloy yung line 4, 5, 6 and so on. Kung saan siya nag-error sa line na yan, it will automatically stop. And then it will prompt you. So magpa-prompt siya na ito, may error ka dito sa line na to. Yan. So the line and character that Python indicates in a syntax error may just be a starting point for your investigation. So, parang may clue ka na. Para may idea ka na bandang dito yung error. Yan. Then we have the second one. This is the logic error. Okay, so a logic error naman is when your program has good syntax, but there is a mistake in the order of the statements. Or perhaps a mistake in how the statements relate to one another. Yun nga dapat, di ba? May series of sequences tayo. So hindi pwedeng palipat-lipat. Okay? So line 1, tapos line 5, tapos babalik ka sa line 2, tapos line 6, then line 3. So hindi pwedeng ganyan. Okay? Hindi gusto ni hindi gusto ni Python yan. So a good example of a logic error might be, take a drink from your water bottle, put it in your backpack, walk to the library, and then put the top back on the bottle. Diba? Ano daw? Take a drink from your water bottle, put it in your backpack, walk to the library, and then put the top back on the bottle. O, diba? Error, logic error. Then we have the last one. This is the third one, the semantic errors. And ano ba yung semantic errors na tinatawag natin? So this is when your description of the it synthetically perfect order. It to do. So program wala namang error, but hindi siya nag-output. Anong kulang? Wala namang syntax error, wala namang logical error. Bakit kaya? So we have here a simple example that would be if you were giving a person directions to a restaurant and said, when you reach the intersection with the gas station, turn left and go 1 mile, and the restaurant is a red building on your left. So anong gagawin mo? Or anong gagawin ng friend mo? So your friend is very late and calls you to tell you that they are on a farm and walking around behind a barn with no signs of a restaurant. Then you said, did you turn left or right at the gas station? Diba? Kasi sabi kanina dito, pag nakarating ka sa intersection or sa crossing na may gas station, mag-turn left ka. And tinanong mo, did you turn left or right at the gas station? And they say, I followed your direction perfectly. I have them written down. It says, turn left and go 1 mile at the gas station. Anong pinagkamali? Anong pinagkaiba? Then you say, I am very sorry because while my instructions were synthetically correct, they sadly contained a small but undetected semantic error. So grammatically or technically, merong error sa side ni Python o sa side ng program mo. Pero kung ikaw, tao ka, syempre yung tao, alam naman kung paano mag-distinguish ng grammar, di ba? Unlike sa program or sa Python, dapat step by step, isa-isahin mo 'yan. Hindi pwede yung yung whole instruction mo is a one sentence lang na hindi alam ni Python kung paano ba 'yan i-arrange. Yan. So how will you fix this one? So we have here what we call the debugging. So ano yung debugging? So debugging is the process of finding the cause of the error in your code. Ito yung tinatawag natin, debugging. And so when you are debugging a program, and especially if you are working on a hard bug, yan, BUG, hard bug, there are 4 things to try. So first, read. So examine your code, read it back to yourself, and check that it says what you meant to say. Okay. Tingnan mo isa-isa per line. Okay, examine mo yan per line. Saan ba banda nag-error? Ano bang kulang ko dito? Baka kulang ako ng close parentheses. Baka nakalimutan ko yung quotation mark ko. And running. Experiment by making changes and running different versions. So often, if you display the right thing at the right place in the right program, the problem becomes obvious. But sometimes you have to spend some time to build scaffolding. So meaning, isa-isa mo siya. Let's say, first run mo, dua lang ang error. Dua lang ang error, line 1 and line 2 yung error. Tapos, nung na-fix mo na yung line 1, biglang dumami. Dumami yung error. Instead of 2 errors, nagiging 3. Okay? And so on. So meaning, you need to run, no? First, tawag nito ng, ano mo siya, parang general rule, no? Or a rule of thumb, yan. Rule of thumb. When you are a programmer, always back up your code. Okay? Baka pag niran mo siya ulit, 10 na yung error. Na dapat isa lang yung error. Marami ka ng ginawang adjustment or modification sa program mo. O hindi mo na mababalik yung isang error lang. Dumami pa tuloy yung problema mo. So always back up your file or your script. So that is a rule of thumb. Yan. Then we have ruminating. Ruminating. So take some time to think. Lakad-lakad ka muna. Baka nasadaan lang yung baka napadaan lang yung error. So what kind of error is it? Syntax bala? Runtime? Semantic? Then what information can you get from the error messages? So kung sa syntax, ang line. Or anong sabi niya? So from the output of the program. So saan ba banda nag-stop? What kind of error? Yan. So what did you change last or before the problem appeared? Diba? Nung una mo change, isa lang yung error eh. Tapos nung finix mo yung isang error, dumami. Diba? Bakit dumami? And then the last one is retreating. So at some point, the best thing to do is back off. Undoing recent changes, so meaning ibalik mo siya sa dati until you get back to a program that works and that you understand. Then, again, you can start rebuilding your whole script or your whole program. And so beginning programmers sometimes get stuck on one of these activities and forget the others. So finding a hard bug requires reading, running, ruminating, and sometimes retreating. So if you get stuck one of these activities, try the others. And so each activity comes with its own failure mode. For example, reading your code might help if the problem is a typographical error. Pag typo lang, let's say instead of H, type mo is G kasi mas malapit sa keyboard. Yan. So if you don't understand what your program does, you can read it 100 times and never see the error. Because the error is in your head. Nasa ulong lang pala yung error, yung problema. Okay, and running experiments can help, especially if you run small, simple tests. But if you run experiments without thinking or reading your code, you might fall into a pattern we call random walking programming or random walk programming. So meaning, parang line 1, line 3, line 2. So parang hindi mo alam kung saan ka magsisimula or you don't know what to do with your code, which is the process of making random changes until the program does the right thing. Needless to say, random walk programming can take a long time. And tapos hindi ka pa nag-comment, no? Hindi ka pa naglagay ng comment na ito pala yung fix na. Ayan. Ito pala yung result na to. Ayan. So sometimes comment or the hashtag can save you some time, no, in debugging your code. Kasi malalaman mo na in this section, this will calculate these inputs. In this section, this will enter some inputs and so on. So that is the importance of comment in terms of or in case, no, sa imong nga script or sa imong nga program. So you have to take time to think. So debugging is like an experimental science. So you should have at least one hypothesis about what the problem is. So if there are 2 or more possibilities, then try to think of a test. Test 1. Ito ba yung fix? Nung yung ginamit ko yung test 1, dalawa lang yung error. Nung ginamit ko yung test 2, aba, isa na lang yung error. Ayan. So taking a break helps with the thinking. So does talking. If you explain the problem to someone else or even to yourself, parang ano lang, talking to yourself, you will sometimes find the answer before you finish asking the question. So try to talk to someone. Try to talk to me. Try to talk to your classmate. And but even the best debugging techniques will fail if there are too many errors or if the code you are trying to fix is too big and complicated. Hindi yung too big na water ha. Meaning parang malaki na, hindi na kaya. So sometimes the best option is to retreat or simplifying the program until you get to something that works and that you understand. So pwede naman magsimula sa isang program lang na maliit, di ba? And then kung ano yung next step mo, gawan mo siya ng bagong file na program or bagong script. Tapos isi-save mo siya ulit. And then once na yung files na yan, or let's say 3 script na yung nagawa mo, you can compile it into a single file or a single script wherein mahaba na siya. It contains your script 1, script 2, script 3 sa isang program na lang. Yan. In which parang pwede mo siya run na buo. Yan. So beginning programmers are often reluctant to retreat because they can't stand to delete a line of code even if it's wrong. Diba? Baka pag dinilit ko to, dumami yung code. Baka pag dinilit ko to, hindi nagugana ulit. So if it makes you feel better, copy your program into another file before you start stripping it down. Okay, so isa-isahin mo. Yung first part ba ng program is gumagana pag siya lang? Pag isinama mo ba yung yung third part ng program mo, gumagana ba lahat? From first, second, and third part ng program mo, gumana ka? Yan. So then you can paste the pieces back in a little bit at a time. So saka mo siya ibubuo paisa-isa pag okay na yung each part ng program mo. Yan. So questions before we end our discussion, clarifications. I'll stop sharing. I guess that's the end of our module 4 for today. May questions, guys? Clarifications? May concern? If none, let me check your laboratory number 1. Wala pang may nag-submit. Although, ano pa naman, next week pa naman yung deadline. Okay, so for your laboratory exercise 2, I will give it to you now para may time kayo. Okay, so let me check. Okay, and ayan, so I will just edit the start time or the start date para makapag-umpisa kayo, no? Although the deadline is the deadline will be March 21. Tagal pa naman. So try to think on how to get or on how to write that kind of program. Yung sa laboratory exercise 1 nyo, simple lang yun. Diba? I already demonstrate kung paano gagawin. But you can try a simplest one or a unique one para lang magaya yung output. You can try that one. You can use the \n later on. Yan. Para ma-result mo yung ano. For your laboratory exercise 2, I think you have dalawa dyan. Part 1 and part 2. Yan. So you don't forget to rename your file name, ha. Then yan yung isasubmit niyo. So for your exercise 2.1, I think that is a input, no? Using the input function. Then for your exercise 2.2, that is a program na magpa-prompt kay user para mag-input siya ng hours, no? And rate per hour. So meaning gagawa ka ng program na magka-calculate ng gross pay. So mag-enter ka ng, for example, mag-enter ka ng 35, tapos as hours, no? Then rate mo is 2.75. Yung output niya dapat is i-multiply niya, which is 96.25. So you should use the input to read a string and int and float function to convert the string into a number. Yan. So a combination of these functions lang muna. Okay, so that's it for today. Thank you for attending our class. And if you have some questions and clarifications with our discussions, or if you are encountering an error with regards to your Python program, just don't hesitate to PM me or send a message sa ating group chat. Okay? Basi the same lang man kamo problem sa imo classmate. Okay, so this is a collaboration activity. Okay, so that's it. Thank you for attending our class today, and see you by next week, Monday, for our next session. And by the way, we cannot meet by next week, Wednesday, no? We will have a meeting. Wednesday afternoon. No meeting, Wednesday afternoon. Okay, so take note na lang for the next week. Ayan. So bye-bye. Thank you for joining our class. I'll stop recording now.